Hey folks, I'm Jesse Mulbauer. Welcome to Good Story Live on this Thursday, November, Ginger, help me out here, November 17th.
Yep, you got it. I'm always waiting to see if you get the date right.
You're waiting for me to screw it up every time, and I am. 50% of the time I get it right. So. One would think I would be more ready ahead of time. Ginger, how are you? It's great to see you.
I know, good to see you too. I missed you last week.
Yes, you did a great job. It was great to see you and Kevin together and hearing the story of how you met, just like, me and Poe. So there'll be more stories like that along the way. I am thrilled to introduce our guest today. We have a very exciting guest on the program. He goes by many names, folks. Martin Smith, DJ Graffiti, the Mangler. We'll get into all of that. Martin Smith joining us live from Detroit. Martin, how are you?
I am doing great. Thank you so much, Jesse and Ginger. Excited to be here. Good Story Live. It's time for some good stories, all right?
Yeah.
He gets us, Ginger.
He does. I love it.
Yes. Martin, hang tight. We're going to put you back in the green room. We'll be with you in just a minute, all right?
Sounds good.
All right, Ginger, what do you say? Should we get the show on the road or what?
Let's do it.
All right, folks, let's do it. You're watching Good Story Live. Welcome back, folks. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is, wherever you are. We're glad to have you right here on Good Story Live. And Ginger Crosby joins us. Ginger, nice to see you again.
I know. Like I said, I missed you last week. I always miss you when you're not here.
I always miss being here. I was traveling. It was a very busy week. I was in Chicago 2 weekends in a row. One for pleasure, one for business, and a lot going on in between. So thank you for keeping the show gears turning last week. You and Kevin, in fact.
Yeah. That game that we played was a little bit of I feel like you and I need to have a run through of that one of these days, and maybe adjust and tweak some of the categories or add to it. But yeah.
No, for you good. Both having had a few sips of wine and more relaxed late at night, a lot of the parents could relate to your predicament. So no worries. It was great to see Kevin and hear your story of meeting on the sex app Tinder. No, it was a very nice story. I don't mean to make light of it.
Thanks. It's okay. It's all good. What's going on? Shifting from me. What's going on with you?
Shifting there. This month, I wanted to mention this. Everyone knows that I wrote a novel this year. My debut novel, All the Moonlight on Earth, came out, and I'm very proud of that. I was very thrilled with how it turned out, and the responses have been strangely universally positive. I mean, like, you're always prepared for some negative criticism. And it spans the gamut. There's constructive criticism, which is always appreciated. And then the negative criticism, which is more, your book's terrible, you're a terrible writer, you should go and die. Like, that's the gamut, right?
Yeah, none of that though, right?
None of that. People have been very supportive, and the readership has enjoyed the romp that this story is. And the hardcover came out earlier this year in March, and this month there is a bit of news that the softcover has been released.
Ooh.
So now I am always a hardcover fan myself. I prefer hardcovers. My shelf is mostly hardcovers. However, the softcover I'm having a hot love affair with right now. It's very beautiful. Let me remind everyone. Here's the hardcover. This one came out in March. Very nice. All the sort of
beautiful
overlook to it, and the because it's set in the 1950s, so forth. Has kind of a sci-fi feel to it, maybe some romantic mystery. We redid the soft cover to add some additional intrigue and mystique, and also to really highlight the noir features storyline. And so, for your approval, Ginger Crosby, here is the soft cover. The soft cover.
The cover of the soft cover.
The cover of the soft cover. Very, very happy with how this turned out.
Beautiful.
I told them I wanted something that was, this is even, I still see the watermarks on it, but this is the one that they did right before the final proof. And originally I had wanted the two characters to be fairly close together with side facial profiles, so that they were, close in heart but separated by distance. But the characters are father and daughter, and so the challenge we ran into was having it look romantic because their faces were so close. So at the end, they came up with the idea, well, what if we put the father down on Earth and the daughter's up there in the sky on the moon, and they're still looking at each other but from afar, and that fixed the whole romantic problem that we were having with the cover. So
it looks wonderful.
Yes.
How does it feel? So I love a hardback, but I also I love the bendiness.
You know what I recommend, Ginger? You should go onto Barnes & Noble's website or Amazon, and you should buy a copy. You should, and then when I come see you, I'll sign it for you.
Oh, perfect. Let's do that.
Absolutely. It feels beautiful. It's got that matte finish to it. And,
yeah, I'm I'm thinking about the texture of it as well.
Yes. The whole tactile experience is wonderful. And the soft cover was 364 pages. The hardcover was 364 pages. The soft cover was a little thicker because it's smaller, about 432. So it feels like it's something you can sink your teeth.
Got some meat to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
But I love the arc lights, the searchlights coming up from the ground, and the very noir feel to the story. The guy in the trench coat there looking up. So
yes, very appropriate for the time and everything.
Yes, the designers did a phenomenal job with it, and so there you go. The softcover version is out and about.
I love that. So it's out now. It's available
in stores near you. Available everywhere. So.
Yeah. If you're curious about how it feels as well, and if you just want to read it, maybe you want to do that too.
You might even like the story. Who knows?
You might even like the story.
You may even like it for more than just its aesthetic value.
You never know.
That's right. Ginger read the hardcover, and she was a fan.
Yes. I did. I thought I had it in here. Actually, no, it's upstairs.
It's all right.
Upstairs. Because I read it in the evenings. I read it in the evenings.
It was nice of you to write a little testimonial. It was included on the back cover.
Of course.
The reprint. So, yeah.
I mean, when else am I going to have that opportunity to have my name on someone else's book?
That's right. Well, I'll send you an advanced reader copy when my next story's done in another 8 years. So.
Perfect. Another 8 years.
It won't take that long.
I was going to say maybe we can get a little bit organized. Well, maybe it's not an organization problem.
You know me well, though. It's probably an organization problem.
I feel like I can help you with that, though.
Well, the first one, there was a lot of life changes going on, too. But now
yes.
I'm working on the outline of this new story for about a year, and I'm about ready to start putting pen to paper. So I'm hoping that at the end of maybe 1 year, 1.5 years, I'll have the first draft done.
We're going to have you on as a guest at some point to talk about this, because we've talked to a lot of authors now at this point, or a handful of authors, and people in publishing, and I'm always just so fascinated by the process. I am the type of person that I want to jump right into something, and then I probably pause after I get started. I'm like, oh wait, I feel like I need more information before I can get started with this. Whereas you, and I feel like most of the other people that we talk to on the show that are writers, spend a good bit of time developing before they ever truly sit down and put pen to paper, so to speak.
Many do. Some people write my way. Others do more of the NaNoWriMo thing, which is going on right now this month. NaNoWriMo, which is writing. Have you heard of this, Ginger?
No, what?
Oh, this is a thing. You being
the
social media queen that you are, I thought for sure you would have heard of this. NaNoWriMo is writing a book, your first draft, in the month of November. You start on November 1st. You wrap it up, even with the Thanksgiving break interruption, on November 30th.
What?
And it's supposed to get the cobwebs out and get and push you past some of your obstacles. I've never had obstacles like that. That's not my problem. My problem is that I write literary fiction, which is much more challenging to tackle and usually has a lot more intricacies woven into it.
Mm-hmm.
I've never participated in NaNoWriMo, and I never will. But to all of you who are, good luck. God bless. I feel for you writing a book.
Mm-hmm.
So
holy poo.
There you go.
Well, thank you. I had no idea. I'm going to go look that up. Not that, again, I'm going to participate. I mean, we're halfway through the challenge already.
Yeah, you'd be starting a little late. I've been working on my draft for a year, so I've already failed.
Yeah, no. I had no idea. So interesting.
Yes.
Maybe next year we'll remind you guys on the show that it's coming up if you want to participate.
Yes. The last episode in October will get you ready for NaNoWriMo in 2023.
I'm going to create a reminder for that.
All right. Oh, I hear the music. It's time to go to a break, folks. We are going to go to a break, but we are going to return. Ginger, who's our guest? I'm so excited about it.
DJ Graffiti, Martin Smith. Oh, I'm excited about him too.
Yes.
And you have heard him before. I've only heard him, bits and pieces, but you've actually been present.
Yes, he's a phenomenal performer and a very interesting story of how this whole DJ Graffiti moniker came to be and how he created a name for himself. So everyone should stay tuned. We'll be back in just a couple minutes and we'll bring out our guest.
All right.
You're watching Good Story Live. All right, we are back, folks, and we're not going to make you wait any longer. I'm tripping over my words. I'm so excited here, and let me tell you why, Ginger. Because
why? Tell me.
I have some familiarity with this guest.
Did you?
Yes, this guest was there for me and for many other people at a very challenging time for many of us during the early days of the pandemic. That's when I first. What fell? Was it a mic? Oh, it was an earring.
My earring just fell right out of my ear. Sorry.
It's a first?
Yes, it's a first.
Should we pause
on the show?
Bigger deal of this or just move on?
Just move on.
Okay. So in the early days of the pandemic, as I was saying, before Ginger started literally falling apart, the company for which I was working at that time hired this phenomenal DJ to come on and do some of the intro for some of our virtual events and to get us pumped and to get us going. And I thought, I saw him listed on the sheet of coming up. I was like, oh, that's interesting that they're doing that. Sounds okay. This was a very different experience than I was prepared for. Much more personable and a great storyteller. I'm thrilled to have him on. He goes by many names. Martin Smith joins us from Detroit. Martin, welcome to Good Story Live. How are you, sir?
I am doing great. And I am not going to mention anything about Ginger's wardrobe malfunction. sorry. I had to do it, and it was more of an accessory malfunction.
As long as you're not falling apart, that's all that matters.
I just might be. I'm getting over a little something, so I apologize if I have to stop and cough or drink several times during this. But I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
No worries. We're happy you're here and that you're well. And So yeah, I was telling Ginger, that's where I first came across your name, was when you hosted some of the events for the company I worked for a couple of years ago. And it was such an uplifting experience. You literally brought us out of our funks, and got us pumped and energized to be a part of this virtual event, which was supposed to be in person, right? We were all a little down about that. It was early 2020, and you swept us off our feet. So let me just read a quick intro here. Martin Smith, aka DJ Graffiti, has become Detroit's go-to DJ for concerts, clubs, and corporate events. He's performed in front of a lot of famous people: Jay-Z, Dave Chappelle, Eminem, Beyoncé, Snoop Dogg, the list goes on. Over the years, he's become a celebrated fixture of Michigan's music scene and was voted best DJ in Detroit in 2010. And he, as well as being an alum of both the University of Michigan Business and Law Schools, he co-founded the marketing company Overflow, which has worked with companies like, Hennessy and T-Mobile and Toyota. So besides being a virtuoso, Martin, tell us a little bit about how this wild ride began for you.
Wow. That's deep waters right there. So it's like, how much how much do I give you? All right. But I'll just give you a little bit more insight into kind of the timeline of events over time that brought me to where I am now.
Please do.
So starting back in college, right? I went to the University of Michigan before I declared my major. At that point, and you're going into finishing up your sophomore year, you declared a major, and then that was when you moved into the business school. So at that time, I started the summer of sophomore year, I started DJing, and then I also decided, well, I love business, so why don't we go into that? So that was way, way back somewhere in the late 90s. I guess I'm giving it away no matter what. I'm old. No way to get around that. But I started out DJing. I'm not really old, but
No,
you know
you're
what I'm
not.
saying?
Not
I'm
at
older
all.
than I look. So I try not to give it away. At least that's what people tell me. But so there in the late 90s, I started into business, started into marketing, started into DJing at the same time. For the first kind of 5 or 6 years there, I was really, really into DJing. It went from doing college, dorm room parties to house parties to club nights to bigger things. Then I moved into doing concerts, and I became kind of the go-to guy around the Metro Detroit area. If somebody was having a big major hip hop related concert, you came to me to open up things. So I was the person who was there rocking the audience for that first hour as everybody was entering the show and really getting people warmed up and ready for, the bigger name act that they came to see. Right. But at the same time, I was doing maybe 20% of my time was dedicated to the business side. And so I was doing lots of sponsorships involved with the events and working with brands. They were like, well, you know how to kind of go out and promote stuff. Can you promote our products? And you got a team there. Why don't you, So I was like, yeah, of course we can do that. Right. So I kind of had marketing and music running at the same time. But then, like I said, 5 or 6 years in, I realized, I don't know if this really is for me, this thing. And so I love rocking audiences. I love performing. But when I went on my first tour, so I started, first of all, kind of doing lots of mixtapes. And every time I would drop a mixtape or a CD, I would do a release party. And I would go around to several places around, usually the US. So like Miami and Chicago and New York and LA. And I would just kind of have release parties in several cities. I loved that. Right. But then when I went on my first 2-week tour and hit lots of different cities, I was like, okay, that was fun, but I'm ready to go home and sit down. Right. It was just too much for me. Right. But all of my friends who are also artists, they loved it so much. And they were like, I got to get back out on the road. As soon as they came home, they were ready to go back. But I was like, if this is how I'm feeling and I just did my first 2-week tour, then maybe this isn't the life for me. Right. And so I fell back from DJing and decided at that moment. And ironically, that was around 2010. As soon as I made that decision to fall back was when I got named best DJ in Detroit. And
Wow.
That is great timing. Oh, wow.
So it's like, you want to get out, we're still keeping you in here. Or
keeping you in. And so I'm like, wow, okay, well. But so at that point, but I decided to lean more into the marketing side. That was when I kind of leaned more into starting Overflow. So Overflow itself, I actually had a music management and marketing company with some partners. And Overflow came as we realized the same thing. We were like, okay, well, the music management is kind of going into this direction, and the marketing side is doing corporate stuff that has nothing to do with music. So I became the sole owner of the marketing side and rebranded as Overflow. So then Overflow ran for, several years, all the way up until the pandemic, right? And it still exists now, but I'm back into DJing full time. Exactly what Jesse was talking about. The company that Jesse worked for at the time was Duo Security, and Duo was the very first company and one of only two that I brought from in person to what I'm doing currently, right? So that very first event that was supposed to be in person, I did it virtually, and nobody really knew what to expect, myself included, right? I had been DJing for friends, just jumping on Facebook, and it was cool. It definitely brought us through the pandemic, but it's nothing like what I'm doing now. And that very first event really energized me. It helped to bring me through just by me being able to kind of give to everybody else, playing music and interacting over chat. It was life-changing for me. So right now I'm doing that mainly full time, right? Not mainly, I'm doing, mainly virtual. Yeah. And then the other part is back to some in-person stuff, but all for corporate audiences. So that is what I'm doing full time. And I've brought a lot of the marketing resources from Overflow into supporting me at Overflow, but we've kind of sunsetted most of our clients and found other places for them to go as far as Overflow goes. We have a couple we still work with, but I'm not taking on, and Overflow is not taking on any new clients. It's all about just bringing joy to people through music right now.
I love that. That's amazing. And how, you first started out when you said you were in school and going to school for business or getting into the business school. How nice that I'm sure some of the skills that you picked up there have translated into your career as a DJ and building that brand and building that audience. So I love that. Now, when did DJ Graffiti, the name, come about? Was that from back in college, or did that come about later on in your career?
Great question. So, excuse me, I promised you I would stop and drink and to keep from coughing.
No, yeah, you're totally fine.
And one more shout out. This is a Duo Security bottle. You can't really see it. The lights are glaring off of it here, but shout out to Swag, Duo Swag. I love my Duo fam. They're always with me.
Everybody loves some swag.
But to answer your question, I've always been DJ Graffiti. I started out as a rapper. So I was Graffiti, the intellectual scholar. That was actually my first terrible rap name, where it was terrible on most, really just because I used to use a lot of big words, right? So I was always into books and studying, and so I used a lot of big words. So that's where that whole intellectual scholar part came from. But I was freestyling with one of my boys, and I was like, I spray mentals like lyrical graffiti. And then my boy was like, ooh, that was dope. You should use that. You should call yourself that. Now, this is something that I would never, ever in my life do today. In hindsight, calling yourself an art form probably isn't something that you want to do, right? That's a whole art form and a whole pillar of hip hop, right? But
it's a lot to live up to.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, DJ Graffiti was coined just because I was already, so I dropped the intellectual scholar part and I was just Graffiti, the rapper. And then when I started DJing, it became DJ Graffiti. It was just natural. So had it since day one of a DJ.
Early days, and remember that old moniker, or is it?
No, honestly, at that point, that was high school. So it was really just, my friends that are still my crew today that I still run with, that I grew up with, they know it, but nobody ever actually called me that. That was just kind of like, I don't know. Actually, no, I was MC Scholar first. That's what happened, right? I was MC Scholar first, then that freestyle happened, and then my friend was like, you should call yourself Graffiti. So I linked the two together by saying Graffiti, the intellectual scholar, and then just dropped all the rest of it. And people called me Graffiti even back then. Before, when I was rapping, they still call me Graffiti now as a DJ. So that's just been it, right? We don't need to remember the rest of that. That's part of the good story we should leave. We should leave alone.
High school story. There you go.
Exactly.
Where did the Mangler come from? Is that like based on what you do to the songs, or how did that become a third moniker for you?
Yeah, so the Mangler really, so DJs started having what are called drops. And let me see if I can cue this up. Let's see if this will actually, we can do this live. but DJs have drops, little sound drops that they put into music. And let's see here. The Mangler. You all hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the Mangler. All right. So DJs have drops. And when you're mixing, a lot of times you don't talk over the microphone. You're just playing music. So you want to be able to have some sort of little trademark thing that you can drop in there and people recognize what you're doing. Now, mangling is also like scratching stuff up. And so when you're obviously scratching on a turntable is you get it. And so that's where I came up with the Mangler. That was my little nickname, just because I wanted a cool drop to be able to play. And I was like, there's a movie called The Mangler. And so, yeah, nobody tell anybody about the trademark aspects of all of that. That's it's like
that is the voiceover guy.
You shouldn't have released that, but that is from, like the lawyer in me is just really knocking me over the head right now. Like, don't say it. But we'll leave that part alone. But we'll just say that audio comes from somewhere that we don't know. We have no idea where that audio comes from.
Sure.
But I am now the Mangler, and that's my little drop that I drop in music. Let's just put it
I worked in radio broadcasting for 10 years. I know that you pull little things and insert them, and maybe they know about it, maybe they don't.
Exactly.
Yes. But I know where that comes from. That's very cool.
Oh, funny.
Okay, forget about it. I can't not tell it. It's like, hey, I'm already out there. The whole problem was that usually as a DJ, we get to the point where we realize a lot of stuff falls into a gray area. So you're often using and playing copyrighted music, right? All the stuff that I was doing, playing songs on Facebook, every day I was getting takedown notices like, you're playing our copyrighted audio. Nobody cares, right? Like, nobody's gonna go and sue a DJ for playing their music. It's just not something that's gonna happen. However, now I'm stepping into a little bit bigger spaces with what I do. So I'm like, maybe I need to think about and just maybe we'll phase the Mangler out. But that is actually, there's a movie called The Mangler, a horror film from back in the day. And the trailer to the movie, you know how they have the deep voice guy that is like, and this summer or whatever, this fall, go and see The Mangler. So that's actually a little snippet of that.
As the voiceover for the person that does all of the trailers, that quintessential, like, everybody recognizes it voice. I love it. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Now, where do you draw inspiration for the sets that you create, and how do you arrange them? Because you have a very unique sound. I was listening to you before we hopped on here. I was listening to some of the samples that you have on YouTube and on your website. So where do you draw inspiration from, and how do you bring those to life?
Man, another great question. So the best part when it comes to inspiration, I should just probably drink every time before I talk.
Do it. It's all good.
All right.
I've got my cup right in front of me.
It sounds great. So the best part of what I'm doing now, when you see some of the online videos that I have up, they're just predetermined sets, or sometimes I just jump on and decide, okay, I'm just going to spin, and I have no idea where I'm going to go with it. And I just start playing stuff and it comes together and I mix songs together. But the best part that I love about what I'm doing now is when I'm live with an audience and there's a chat room, we create everything on the fly, right? So I come into it as much as possible with a blank slate, just kind of having some idea, okay, here's the audience that I'm playing for, so they might like this and this. But otherwise, I'll ask people, hey, jump in the chat, give me requests, which is something that DJs don't do, right? And I did that very much on purpose, right? Once you get to a certain plateau as a DJ, you get to a point where you're like, all right, people are here, and it's my job to kind of curate the vibe, curate the soundtrack, and I don't want you requesting things. And it comes from a place where when you start out and you're in nightclubs, usually somebody's coming up with some really bad energy asking you for a request. That's just generally what it is. It's like people will come up and say, everybody would really have a good time if you were playing this. But you look out and everybody's dancing and having the time of their lives. But somebody really just wants to hear that song. So they want to convince you that you should stop doing what you're doing to make their day and just play exactly what they want to hear. So that type of energy kind of carried over, and it's become a thing where DJs are like, no requests. So for me, when it came to virtual, the difference is I can't look out and see the audience and tell if they're having a good time. right? So for me to know if people are enjoying themselves, I need some feedback from them. So that's why I get them to jump in the chat. I say, share, your thoughts. If you enjoy something, really let me know. If you don't enjoy a song or you really don't like something, don't share that because that's bad energy. But otherwise, throw your request in the chat. If I have it and I can get it on, then I'll play it. And it really became something that is a challenge for me because instead of being like, no request, I'll do everything, and then not having any idea if everybody's like, this is boring, I'm going to go to the bathroom, I'm going to go get something to eat. You can't tell if people are leaving their screens, right? So if I can get people engaged and get people involved, then every event, people leave saying he gets us. He knows exactly what we wanted to hear. This was awesome. This one of a kind experience that you'll never again see because it was all based on everybody else who was requesting things. So to me, I'm almost spoiled by that now. When I go back to an in-person event where I just have to come up with all the stuff to play, I'm like, man, what are these? I don't even know what they really want to hear, right?
I was astounded when you did your first set for GitLab. You did the chat window opened up, and I was astounded that you were actually doing, like, you were doing all the things that the DJ needs to do, and taking requests via chat, and responding to comments, and joking with people. Like, I had no idea how you kept all of that straight.
Oh, Jesse, you were at GitLab.
Yes.
Not Duo. Okay. I confused the two.
No, that's okay. But Duo was the first one that when you started virtually, correct?
Exactly. Duo was the first one that I started virtually. So, but no, GitLab is also one of my very favorite clients that I've done more events with GitLab than any other company just because of GitLab puts me on marathon sessions. So at that time, so that's a different phase. I'm glad we cleared that up because Duo was my very first virtual event.
Like, book him for the whole day, like a morning session, an afternoon session.
Exactly.
I don't know when he rested at all.
Wow.
So I basically didn't. So that tested the limits of what I'm able to do. Okay. So when I started with Duo, which now I've worked with, man, it's probably been it's approaching 100 different corporations, right? That I've been able to do these events for since 2020. But when I started with Duo, it was a very different experience. It was basically the in-person version of me just DJing. So if you go on YouTube and if there's still something there, it's likely just me like playing songs. I'm not very engaging. I'm just like looking down most of the time. And my personality wasn't coming through because I was used to being like, it's the DJ's job to play the music and create the atmosphere. But nobody wants to hear you talking all the time. That was kind of my mindset. And then when we came into the pandemic, it kind of changed because if I actually have to watch you, then you need to be entertaining. You can't just be, I don't really want to see somebody looking at the laptop and then doing this and this. It only goes so far. You can watch for a good 10, 15 minutes and then you're tuning it out, right? So by the time I got to my GitLab phase, I learned to be an entertainer a little bit more, right? And so if you look at pictures of me, they're always like these straight face, very intense looking pictures. Usually I smile so much more now. Like I've like come into my own as being me while I'm doing this thing. And so that's why when Jesse was saying like he was telling jokes and, communicating with everybody, and it really has changed me and I'm much more of it's still me, but I like to say, I boil a whole day's worth of smiles, worth of energy down into that 1 hour period. All right. And so with GitLab, they started having me do 3 hours a day, which is a lot, right? With the type of energy that I give when I'm performing, when I'm out here, it's like I sweat through my shirt, like I'm spent. So like after we would do conferences with GitLab, and I think they would have me doing maybe 2 events one day, 2 events one day, 3 events the next day, or maybe it was 3 and 3 and 2. I would sleep for almost a week because I would be so tired.
Yeah.
But I love it. I love it. Yeah, I just love it so much.
That's so interesting to hear your shift in it from being the DJ that, is kind of making the music, not really talking, engaging. I've found that so my experience with DJs, is not in that scene at all, but I was a wedding photographer for several years. So I worked with DJs in that setting. And I always found that the most engaging DJs were the ones that were also entertainers as well. So I love that you kind of discovered that. And what a great way to find that and kind of shift going into the online space and being able to create in the moment with people. I think that's wonderful.
Sure. Yeah, I have a strong foundation in the wedding industry too. So that it's everything. It's so weird. If we have a chance to talk about it, I don't know how long, but everything that I did prior to this point contributes in a very almost unreal way to what I'm doing now. And being a wedding DJ was a large part of it. That was something I didn't broadcast that I was doing, because I mean, at the time it was kind of seen as like, you're doing those weddings. That's just, you can get money over there, but it's kind of corny and so on and so forth. I was always the DJ people came to say like, we don't want a traditional wedding DJ. We want a quote unquote real DJ. So we're going to have DJ Graffiti. Like that was kind of like my brand when it came to weddings. But that gave me the ability to play for someone's little cousin and for their grandparent and everybody in between. Right. And so
become a namesake for the family. Yeah,
exactly. And so it really shapes how I'm able to just show up to an audience now and just play for anybody. Right. Before that, I kind of was, I was the hip hop guy. Right. And I loved all kinds of music, but I just didn't have the experience playing. I don't have any idea whether people in the audience are going to be like, we don't want any rap songs, or we want all rap songs when I show up to an event, right? And so like people can go anywhere with the music, and I'm just like to be a musical chameleon and just follow them wherever they want to go, and we end up having a great event.
Ginger, I don't know if you know this about DJ Graffiti or not, but he doesn't always work alone. Sometimes he has a crew, a two-lady crew who helps him, and we have a photo here to show two of his crew show up and provide phenomenal. I don't know if you noticed the comments, Martin, but at least at GitLab, there would be at a certain point, people would look at their watches and wonder if school was almost out. And if your daughters would be making an appearance, they got way more attention than you did.
They are beautiful.
That's hilarious. So that's my daughter and one of her best friends. She calls it her cousin. Yep. So the one standing up with her hands up, that is my daughter. And that's her cousin that's down standing up. So the funny part is, I don't know if Jordan had to be, so because Jordan's smaller than my daughter, but we have a cooler. They are standing on a cooler behind me. And so my daughter is now to the point where she is much taller, and she can still get up above. She's maybe this tall if she was just standing on the floor here. But she still needs the cooler, but she's like, Daddy, you got to get a bigger platform for me. So before, I think at that point she was maybe 4 years old. Now she's 6. And so she's like, hey, if I'm going to keep doing this, like, I need a bigger platform. I need some more accoutrements.
You got to make a stage for me, Dad.
She knows how to negotiate. I like it.
Exactly.
She'd show up and she'd, bop and jive to what was going on and provide the phenomenal background dancing to his music. And I mean, the chat would just explode. It was phenomenal.
Everybody loves it.
Yes.
She is such a ham. So the funny part is that I'm an introvert, and so is my wife. And she's the biggest extrovert. And a lot of times I don't even know what she's doing. I'm focused on DJing. I know she's back there, and then I'll go back and look at the video, and she's just going crazy. And I'm like, she just has no filter. She just doesn't care. She's like, hey, I'm here and it's my time to shine.
Oh yeah, that would be my daughter. Both of my kids, they popped on here on Good Story Live the other day for the first time, and they're right now 4 and 2, getting ready to be 5 and 3. And they're both just like, but if I just let them run wild, oh my goodness, we wouldn't be able to hear anything. No conversations would be had whatsoever.
That's hilarious.
Now, being an introvert and recognizing that you're an introvert, you talked about doing those long sets, right? How I know for me, you mentioned that you'd come home and sleep. Those would be extremely draining for me. How do you keep the stamina and make it through sets like that when you're talking about hours at a time?
Well, the great part about what I'm doing now is it's usually not hours at a time, because now that it's transitioned into that performance aspect, and especially virtually, usually the sets are only about an hour, right? When I'm in person, they can be longer if I'm doing a mixer or something like that, a party. But in the past, the DJ is kind of in the corner or just up on stage. And then, I can do that for 4 hours, no problem. I did that for many years. But to be active and having no idea what songs I'm going to be playing and coming up with that live and then jumping into the chat and reading the chat and, juggling all of the balls at the same time, right? To do all of that, I can only do that for like an hour, maybe an hour and a half before I'm like, okay, I'm wiped out. It's time to, it's time to go sit down.
You put 100% of yourself into it. It's phenomenal to watch. For anyone who performs or is in the public eye, you've worked and you've opened for some very big names: Jay-Z, Dave Chappelle, Snoop Dogg. How do you manage the nerves? I think a lot of creative people are curious about that.
Yeah, so that is an awesome question. I think I've gotten better with it over the years. I will say it's just become a natural thing that I think if I didn't feel the nerves, I'd be a little concerned, right?
Okay.
So once I get on stage and once I get going, they kind of go away. I'll say 2 tips that I've had is if I'm really feeling nervous, I will just come out and talk about it, right? And make a joke about it. And that usually helps it to go away because then I'm not thinking about the fact that I'm nervous. I acknowledge it and then it can move on to wherever it needs to go. But yeah, in general, before a set, I'm always nervous. I'm always concerned. I have a hard time sleeping when I'm out of town because I'm like, what if I oversleep, And then and especially if it's a morning event or something like that. And that because I'm doing corporate events, a lot of times it's 8 o'clock in an auditorium. And I'm the first person that people are going to see, getting them ready for, the content or whatever.
You are the replacement for the coffee to wake people up in the mornings. Yes.
And so many people say that. So many people are like, what do we need coffee for when we got DJ Graffiti? Because the energy that I'm giving you right now, when I'm DJing and doing, I would say it's at least amped up at least 4 times what I'm giving right now. I'm just kind of sitting here talking. But so in terms of nerves, though, one thing is acknowledging the nerves. If they're really that serious and just saying, whoo, you all got me nervous. I am so excited and ready to make this happen, and then that just lets the nerves kind of fade away. But otherwise, it's just getting used to it. I think I will let my secret out. When I first started doing this, I was just so concerned about, is the technology going to hold up? Am I going to be able to show up for all these events and all that kind of stuff? That I used to mix a little something in my drink here. And so I'm like, hey, I'm at home. Nobody's really going to know. I'm not a big drinker, so I wouldn't go too heavy, but just something to take the edge off, and then I can be able to relax a little bit. But now I'm to a point where I really don't need it. I show up, I'm excited. I know I'm going to be a little bit nervous, and that's okay. And as long as I come ready to give my all, I haven't had anybody say, yeah, no, this was lackluster. This wasn't, everything we expected to be. And I think it helps that I'm kind of one of one in this space as of right now. There's lots of DJs. A lot of DJs are doing virtual events, but I've never seen anyone do anything that's as inclusive as what I do in this very same way for corporate audiences. So in that space, it's hard for people not to be, if they've never seen what I do before, it's hard for them not to be impressed because you just can't expect what you get, right?
Right. Oh, absolutely. No one had any idea what to expect when you came on, and then you blew us all away. And I think that lends actually nicely into one of the other questions about the industry. So obviously you've carved a niche for yourself, but talk about the industry as a whole for a second. Was COVID overall beneficial as far as providing new opportunities, new ways of doing it? Was it overall detrimental to the industry? How did COVID affect it?
All right. So as far as DJs go, excuse me. As far as DJs go, I think in the entertainment industry as a whole, in terms of live performances, I think there definitely was both, right? So there was a hit in that a lot of people who used to make money performing several days a week or going on tour over stretches of time weren't able to do that in person. But at the same time, a lot of people realized, wow, I can actually engage audiences and build a following that I can just be in my home studio and play for. So I think new avenues opened up for people who leaned into those. And then also a lot of people were hurt because their income just dried up overnight, where they used to go to work several days a week and get a paycheck, right? And now they weren't able to go out and get that. So, but that is, I'll dig a little bit deeper because this is really an insight that transformed my life. But going into the, 2008 2009,
Mm-hmm.
recession of that time. I had Overflow at that time, and I was kind of holding on for dear life, because
Mm-hmm.
our, client contracts started to dry up and money starting to tighten up. And I was just like, please just don't let us go under. I got to keep my staff paid, and please just let us hold on.
Yeah.
Such that this time around, when we kind of felt like the uncertainty and the, recessionism of the COVID phase, I was like, all right, how can this be for me? Right. I know
Mm-hmm.
there's so much pain going on and people were passing away and just like all the craziness. But I said, I know a lot of people found ways to be successful during that last time. And
Yeah.
so I'm going to look and lean into how this can be for me and how this can be a positive and net positive. And so that was what allowed me to make that transition and say, I'm going to step back a little bit from Overflow because this is just explosive
Mm-hmm.
and going well beyond my wildest dreams, and I need to lean into this. And so, yeah.
Wow. Did that now? It sounds like, from listening to you talk about that, there was a lot more strategy behind making that shift once you realized what was going on with COVID versus there was, I think some people, when COVID hit, they started doing things for fun and things grew out of that. This sounds like there was more strategy behind that. Am I correct in that?
I would say yes and no, right? And
Okay.
so
Mhm.
there definitely was strategy because I'm a consultant by nature. And so, like I said, DJ Graffiti did kind of become my number one client. And I started looking at it from a business perspective. But at the same time, I didn't know if this was something that was going to dry up, right? I was like, is this something that we're just doing because we're in the pandemic? And then all of a sudden, when people are able to gather in person, they'll want no parts of it anymore. And it took me a long while to realize this is not really going away, right? And I think there is somewhat of a stigma to virtual events as of right now. People are kind of like, we sat on Zoom and we sat on, platforms for so long that we just, attention spans have shortened and people don't want to sit there all day long and just look at a screen in the
Yeah.
same way. But webinars existed before and after, COVID, the virtual events, now that people are comfortable joining a platform and just getting content that way, that's still going to be there in a very large way going forward. I don't ever see it going away. And so I said, this is a brand new industry that I'm able to become the go-to, right? So I'm really just
Yeah.
repurposing things that I did before. I was the go-to guy for concerts in Detroit. So now I can be the go-to person for virtual events for corporate. And that's where I'm trying to, plant my flag. So there definitely is strategy behind it. And now I'm much more strategic. But at the time it was kind of like, hey, this is working. Let's lean into it. And then as I started to realize this is not going anywhere, I just started to say, okay, let's start putting, the business aspects in place, building out a CRM system and having onboarding for clients and all of the things that I would be helping clients do in the marketing world, I'm now doing for myself to create a real business.
That's phenomenal. I love that. 2 more questions. We're getting short on time here. The first one being, I know you do different types of sets depending on the audience. There's ones that you can do that have more of a party atmosphere. There's ones for corporate events. And then you also do one that, for lack of a better term, more praise and worship events, ones for more like church themed groups. Do you have a favorite type or is the favorite the one that you're doing for that particular audience at the particular time?
The favorite for me is the one that the audience is into most, right? And so a lot of my energy comes from the audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just love music, right? I really am a musical chameleon, and there's no aspect of what I say called good music that I
Mm-hmm.
don't really get into. I'm open to listening to lots of music and enjoying lots of music. And what I found out through some research more recently is music at its core, affects us. I mean, you can feel how music just can change your mood, can align with however you feel. If you're feeling
Mm-hmm.
sad, you can put on some music that just is like perfectly capturing how you feel. If you're feeling happy or you're not feeling happy and you put on a certain song, it can change your mood, right? So
Sure.
music does at its core, it reaches us in ways, and it, not to get too deep into the science behind it, right? But it's been known to kind of pass the prefrontal cortex of your brain, which means that you don't think about it before it reaches you. A lot of things
Mhm.
somebody says to you, you process it in your brain, and then you determine how to feel about that thing you just heard, right?
Oh, yeah.
But with music, that's why they have music scores for TV and for films, where all of a sudden somebody just steps into the room, and if you hear just some like ominous music happening, you're like, oh, what's happening? It just
Yeah.
it hits you, and you don't even realize it's really there. Or if the music is just you're like, oh, somebody's frolicking in the flowers or whatever,
Mhm.
like just by hearing the music. And so, yeah, I got completely away from the question and completely forgot what the question is, but
It was, do you have a preference of what
yeah,
yeah.
I'll just say my preference is whatever the audience is enjoying at the time. And so I kind of
Mhm.
answered that question, but
Yes.
just to say, it doesn't matter what the vibe is that people need and what they're looking for. I just like aligning with that and helping them get from where they are to where I think everybody needs to go. Right.
I love
So,
that.
from a spiritual perspective, that really drives a lot of me. And so, what I'm doing right now is really trying to almost infuse people with joy, love, peace, encouragement, right? So that's a very spiritual thing for me. And that's what I feel
Mhm.
like my job is. It's being a DJ is kind of the vehicle that allows me to just pass out good energy, right? And so
Mhm.
that's what I'm doing. So, yes, I love all types of music. And as long as everybody's with me in it, let's take
Mhm.
that journey.
I love it. Yes, absolutely. Um, you have been such a pleasure and a joy to talk to, DJ Graffiti, Martin. The question that I have for you, the last question that we ask all of the creatives that we have on Good Story Live, and I'm sure many people would love to hear from you, but what advice do you have that you would give to another aspiring DJ that wants to follow in your footsteps, or another aspiring creative that's just wanting to start on their own path and their own journey? What advice would you offer them?
Right. So, the biggest piece that happened for me based on what I'm doing right now and the advice that I would pass on is the best way to, I don't know, chart your path is really to have focus, right? When we go into my background and all of the things that you heard about me, that I went to business school and law school and had a marketing company, and we didn't talk about the fact that I owned and sold a photo booth company and all this kind of stuff. People said, oh, you're a Renaissance man. You're doing so many things. But to tell you the truth, I was kind of disjointed, right? I never really got traction in the way that I should have because I lacked focus. I was doing so many different things. So the ability to pull my marketing, my music, and everything that I love and put it down one lane, which is the DJ Graffiti experience, what I'm doing right now, it's transformative for me because I realize that every step that I make forward is moving in the right direction and moving this forward. So I would just say, have focus, figure out who your audience is, and have that one audience that you're going to cater to. For me, it's corporate events as of right now. And just lean into that and put all of your energy into that. People say, you need a plan B, right? But it's really best to just focus on your plan A until you figure out you want to move and change and move somewhere different. And then you can think about plan B. But as a creative, just lean into that. And also, before I get out of here, I don't know if I'll get time to wrap things up. I want to
Yeah.
invite everybody. If you enjoyed this conversation and you'd like to have a little bit of motivation for me, I have what's called Uplift. It's a weekly session that I do, not even session. It's 5 to 10 minutes that I send out via email or text message on Mondays to kickstart your week with a little music and me giving, kind of a motivational head,
I
kind of like
want
a
that.
mindset tip. You can join at join.djgraffiti.com. And so just to
Super
spell that
awesome.
out, that's join.djgraffiti.com.
I will link that in the description and on goodstorylive.com. Absolutely. I want that on Monday mornings.
And can I just say, you have a phenomenal presence on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
which is obviously very smart of you. That's where I've found a lot of your other material and some of when you go live and notifications. So you have a great LinkedIn page to follow too.
Thank
Oh,
you. You just
wonderful.
see, you can pull me back in. I'll be quick about this one, but
Yeah.
that was a very strategic decision, if I can say the word. But I decided once I was leaning into corporate events, I was like, okay, wait a minute, where are companies? They're on LinkedIn. So I've all but abandoned most of my other social media, right? So I was active more so on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook in the past. But now, because of corporate events, I'm leaning into LinkedIn. And so that's what I mean about focus. It's like you only have so much time. I don't have the time to be great on all the platforms, right? And I feel super left out. Everybody's like, you need to be on TikTok. You need to be on TikTok. And there are companies doing stuff on TikTok, but it's just the ability to focus in and know that who I want is generally on LinkedIn meant that that was a platform for me to lean into.
I was smart.
You
Absolutely.
need to be on TikTok is what Ginger keeps telling me. So it sounded like Ginger for a second.
We just need to figure out where we want to be and
That's
then
right.
go. Yeah.
One
That's
step
the conversation.
I would say figure out first where are the people that you want to reach, right? Where are they active most? And then you will say, okay, based on where they're active, then what makes the most sense? Because the reason everybody wants to be on TikTok is all the social media services and networks, when they first start, there's a lot more reach, right? You can post something and a ton of people will see it. Then over time, they start locking that down and charging for it, right? So TikTok is still in that early phase, and honestly, so is LinkedIn, right? Even though LinkedIn's been around forever, they're just getting to the point where people use it as more than just a place to put a resume, right?
Correct.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So, okay, I'm done. I know we got to wrap it up.
Martin, when you start your own social media company, let me know. So that'll be great. The DJ Graffiti app, I'm ready for it. Martin Smith, aka DJ Graffiti, the Mangler, the man, the legend. Thank you so much for being on Good Story Live. And Ginger will have all of the stuff listed below and on the website. Tell them you know how it works.
Yep, all the links will be down in the description below on Good Story Live. I am definitely signing up for that weekly newsletter because like I said, I could use some of that in my life.
Absolutely.
For sure. Thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure. I will be sure to link to your LinkedIn versus I'll link to all of them, but you heard it from him. LinkedIn, if you want to see what's going on.
Absolutely.
With Martin Smith.
That's
DJ Graffiti, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a great conversation and looking forward to seeing everybody on the weekly uplift. Join.djgraffiti.com.
Yeah.
Go do it.
All right.
We'll see you again soon, Martin.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
DJgraffiti.com is the website. Go check it out. Lots to see, folks. And boy, it'll get your day off going right, I tell you.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm excited. I feel like Grayson my son Grayson is gonna love that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. For sure. This has been fun. We have to wrap it up. Folks, just a quick programming note. We are going to be off next week for Thanksgiving. We hope you have a wonderful time with your friends and family and all of that. Or if you're even by yourself, just enjoy the wonder that is you. And we will return
back
on
December 1st.
See, that I got. I didn't know today's date, but I knew we were back on December 1st. So go figure.
We're back on December 1st.
Back on December 1st, folks. We will see you then. Until then, I hope you have a wonderful holiday. And Ginger, have a great time down there in Atlanta. We'll see you soon, all right?
Thank you. You too.
Bye, everyone. See you next time.